Hello, my name is Griffin Suber, and I'm the associate editor of Log and Timber Home Living, and we are here to talk about the return of Log and Timber Home Living's Dirt to Done series. I'm joined here, if you remember from part one, with my good friend Bob Sternquest, who is the president and CEO of Timbercraft Built for Life. Bob has served in this position for the last 20 years with over 600 timber frame projects produced during his tenure at Timbercraft. His specialty is timber frame and SIP construction for both residential and commercial projects, with a specific emphasis on hybrid timber frame construction. How you doing today, brother?
Good, man. Good. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, it's good to see you as well. So as I said before in part one, the idea behind this series is exactly the name. We wanted to follow a project from a plot of land to a finished furnished home. The series consists of 7 parts, which will appear in the magazine each month. An introduction to the project, the design phase, site prep, timber raising and SIPs, external materials and mechanical installs, finishing the interior, and then to cap it all off, the finale home tour. Today, we are going to be talking about site prep and timber raising. This is the 3rd and 4th article, I believe. So first question, just dive right in. The homeowners picked this site because of the views, Pikes Peak out in Canyon City. That means it's at the top of a hill. What went into preparing this particular site?
Well, certainly when you're on top of a hill, you've got design criteria, with heavy wind loads and whatnot. But one of the things that's really unique about this property is that it's a large parcel. So part of what had to be accounted for was getting the driveway in. And one of the challenging things is that there's a switchback in the driveway and it's very steep. So one of the things that people need to realize is that when you're working with, and you're gonna order a timber frame, is we're not coming in pickup trucks, we're coming with full-size semi-loads. Right. And a semi-trailer is 48 feet. And when you have a switchback, we actually couldn't deliver right next to the foundation like most normal jobs. So one of the things that had to be accounted for was a staging area. So we actually, fortunately, this job site had a big enough area where we were able to unload on the job site and then shuttle it up on smaller trailers up to the top. So, that was kind of unique. But one of the other curveballs that got thrown to us during this process, as we began to dig the hole for the foundation itself, is we found granite. We found a big slab of granite, 5.5 feet down, which actually meant we weren't able to put the house quite as far down that we wanted to. Now, when you run into a situation in a curveball like that, you have to weigh, do I want to go ahead and dynamite this, or do I want to possibly set the home on top of it and bring fill in? And when we did the cost benefit analysis, it actually worked out easier for us to go ahead and bring earth in. And also it's a large site, so we were able to kind of steal some earth from other areas and use the area that we did dig up to help with the house. On the backside, we had to bring a lot more in, but every job site's unique. It's very rare when you're building a timber frame home that you're building a subdivision. You're kind of on a lake, you're on top of a hill, someplace kind of unique.
Yeah, something. Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm sure it takes a good driver to get things where they need to go.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, so speaking of, I understand the homeowners have been living in an RV, under a pole barn on site. So there's some sweat equity there, I'm sure. How involved have the homeowners been in the process?
Well, very involved. Our Tony, the husband here, one of the things, he actually is a remodeling contractor. Now, he's not a builder, and a lot of people don't realize that there's a difference. His specialty is working inside the house. So what my homeowner did is they actually hired a local general contractor to be able to put the foundation in, put the subfloor on. Timbercraft has come in. We've erected the shell of the house. I hate to call timber framers rough carpenters, but we kind of come build the shell of the house. And in a lot of projects, you'll hire local flooring, cabinets, and whatnot. But because my client actually has that skill, my client's kind of running the show inside the house with mechanicals and finishes, where the general contractor is working on putting on the roof, putting the deck, the windows, the exterior siding. And see, there's a lot of sweat equity. And I see a lot of our customers try and do things like that. Even when I built my own house, for example, I did my own painting, I did my own floors. So anytime a customer can put some sweat equity in, what a great way to go. part of the reason why my client is staying there is my client's originally from Ohio. And they're moving, they've retired, they're moving from Ohio to Colorado, and they actually got a pole barn on the property first to be able to, put their RV, put storage materials, things like that. So it's been a dream. It's been a dream for them to be able to build this timber frame. So there's been a lot of planning. There's several years of planning that's gone into this, and it's quite an experience.
That's got to be a trip, I'm sure, for them. They're literally watching it, from dirt to done, being there and having it be raised before their eyes. So walk me through the timeline of events when raising a home. How's it all start?
Sure. I mean, basically, one of the things that I want people to understand is whenever you build a timber frame home, it's almost always going to be a local foundation contractor that's going to come put the foundation in. Usually when Timbercraft and other timber frame manufacturers show up, the foundation's in and the subfloor is on. That is the ideal, perfect time for us here at Timbercraft to come in. And the reason we want to come in before there's any walls, anything else, is that typically we'll unload a truck and we'll put the timbers that we need to fly around the foundation. But that deck, that solid area, that's actually where we pre-assemble everything. So for example, with this house, we have two beautiful arch king post trusses, but they're actually bents. A truss with legs is called bent. And we actually assemble those on a nice, flat, even deck where it's nice and clean. We don't have to worry about dirt and stones, anything like that.
Those beautiful beams.
Exactly. So step number one is to stand up the timber frame. But because what we built here was a hybrid timber frame, we actually are also relying on the structurally insulated panels. So for example, day one, get the truck unloaded, get timbers shuttled up to the job site, and assemble the bents. Day two is kind of like the money day. That's the wow day. That's when we actually, maybe the closest thing to extreme makeover, where you stand up the bents real quickly. But because this was a hybrid, we actually then transitioned to the structurally insulated panels and began to build the walls, but we left the front area open. That way the crane could see what we were doing. And from there, we put other timbers that reach and get connected to the SIPs. So it's kind of a bounce back and forth, but typically you get the timber frame and the SIP walls on. That's kind of like the phase one of the install. The next portion of the install is to either put the tongue groove on and then put the structurally insulated panel roof on top of it. Now, because we're building in Colorado in the middle of winter, we were watching storms. We're on top of a hill. Nothing's going to block any of these storms coming in. So what we actually did with this project is we actually shimmed up the timbers and put the roof on as quickly as we could. And then in a controlled environment with the roof on, we then installed the tongue groove. But ultimately, that's going to matter for customers, just depending upon what their situation is.
It sounds about, like 3-4 days total?
Typically, a timber frame is going to take 2 to 4 days, depending upon the complexity of it. And I have always found that whatever the timber frame takes, the SIPs are about the same. So if it takes us 2 days to erect the timber frame, it's usually 2 days on the walls, 2 days on the roof. And again, just depends upon how many pre-finished tongue groove ceilings and floors we're going to end up installing. But a typical timber frame raise for us here at Timbercraft, because we actually pre-fit everything that when we send a timber frame out, we've already put it together front to back and left to right. The only fabrication we're doing is on the post bottoms, where we leave a little bit, because when you show up, it's not uncommon that concrete will move a little bit. So we actually are only cutting those. That's why it's such a fast process. And that's why we're big believers in pre-fit timber frames, because we know it's going to work. Because let's say there's a timber that's cut wrong. I can't run to Home Depot and buy a timber. I mean, I need to catch that in our factory. And so, that's basically the way the process goes. But 1 to 2 weeks on a normal 2,000 to 2,500 square foot home. This house with the shuttling and whatnot, it was about a week and a half. We got the structure up.
Yeah, I've heard you say it before. Grown man Legos.
It is. It is, and it's the coolest part, man. It is so cool standing these things up. I love it. It's kind of funny that, the manufacturing time from the time people order, it's usually 8 weeks to 12 weeks, but then the timber frame raise is a week. The fun part, and and there's so many traditions, and we like to do those traditions. We'll put pennies under the posts that have the date. That way,
Oh, yeah.
Know how old the timber frame is. We'll hang a branch from the highest point. Now, I also employ a lot of wiseacres, and if it's Christmas time, I've seen photos of Christmas trees hung from the highest point. But it just varies.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, last question for you on this topic. All around the industry, everyone's talking about building material costs going up, currently on the rise. How has this affected kind of the relationship between SIPs and conventional stick framing?
Well, it's kind of funny for structurally insulated panels. If anything, this COVID-19 event that the whole world's going through, obviously we've seen the cost of materials go up. But one of the things that's really important, particularly with the structurally insulated panels, is that when you're building with a SIP home, you're using 20% of the lumber and wood that you would with a stick frame home. And where we're seeing a big spike is in OSB, 2x, but because the SIPs have very little lumber in it itself, it's a 80-20. So yes, our materials have gone up, the cost of SIPs have gone up, but not the way dimensional lumber. Those are really skyrocketing. And what I've actually noticed is that conventional construction and SIPs are far more competitive today than they ever have been.
Right.
And they're 3 times stronger, 6 times more energy efficient. I mean, the benefits are just unbelievable. And maybe it's a blessing, a little hidden gem here with the spike for that to go up. I mean, certainly homeowners are going to have to pay attention to the other rising costs, but I also believe, and I'm talking to the lumber yards, I think we'll see the cost as we get closer to 2022. We'll see the cost of dimensional material begin to come back down, but in terms of SIPs, it really hasn't hurt the SIPs too bad.
Right. Well, thanks for taking the time to speak with us today, Bob. We always appreciate it. The next Dirt to Done installment, Site Prep, will appear in the June-July issue of Log and Timber Home Living, which goes on sale May 25th. Past installments are available at timberhomeliving.com, and be sure to follow us on all of our social media channels for further updates. Thanks for talking to me today, brother.
You got it, man.